Hey, what's up guys? It's LEGO Hobo 910 here with another LEGO video, and in this video I'm reviewing set number 76125, the Iron Man Hall of Armor from the Avengers Endgame wave. So let's get right into the review. Normally I start with the smaller side builds, of which there are a decent amount in this set, but I really just want to start with the main Hall of Armor here build because I have a lot to say about it, and I really freaking love this. So first off, this is very, very customizable. As you can see, each of these sections is individually hinged, so you can, have it. This is about as tight as it can go. This is how much I like to have it. I really like that look and think it's unique. Flat, if you want to just have it be a flat wall, or even if you want, you can bend it all the way back and almost complete a ring like this. In fact, if you just tip out this ladder, you have a ring completed like that. Or if you want the inside of the ring there, and then even then, each of these sections can be individually popped off to rearrange them, and then this comes apart in two sections, right here and right here, and then also connect either of the sections onto that little technic hole there. And so let's start by actually looking at some of these smaller sections here. We'll scoot this aside for a moment. Here's kind of his desk, which has a black swiveling chair, and then I like how they kind of gave the illusion of these, kind of hologram screens hovering here using the trans blue rod. I think that looks pretty neat. And then these stickers are really hard to see in real on camera. In fact, I think they do show up a little bit better on camera sometimes, just depending on the lighting. Because first of all, they're transparent stickers, which don't show up all that well in the first place anyway. And then they're on transparent, well, more so that they're on transparent pieces is why they don't show up. Plus, and they're also not very opaque. So there's 4 screens here. The first one, which has like a system error intruder alert, and you can see the outer as well as an Iron Man mask, and then a blocked collar, and I believe that's supposed to represent Agent Coulson on the left there. I don't really know what it's meant anything in particular, so I don't know of any references that might be trying to make. And then this one just has Jarvis there, which obviously isn't really a thing anymore because he's in Vision. Then there's also this section, which is really cool. This is the suit assembly section, and it has these 2 arms here, which are on ball joints at the bases. So that lets you get all sorts of movement, unless if you rip them off, oops-a-daisy. And then also they hinge there and have a robot claw, and also they are actually slightly different. This one is a single stud. Okay, these are very posable, so you can get them all around, from the very bottom to the very top of Iron Man, both sides, front and back. And so then you can pretty much hit every single spot to make it look like he's assembling. And then if you can't quite hit something, you can also rotate this, which looks pretty cool. I don't really know why they included this, though. It doesn't really add that much for me, personally. In fact, it kind of annoys me a bit, because sometimes I'm trying to get him looking straight forward, and then, I end up bumping him, and then he's off, and I don't know. I don't understand the point of it, but it is another thing. I also like the piece choice there for the base. I think that looks pretty cool. So overall, these 2 small sections here are really useful. And then also, they can be combined here. This is pretty much the only order they can be combined in, because this one obviously doesn't have anything on there, but if you want, you can put them on the back here for reasons, or also you can only put one on the back, one on the front, whatever you want. So we're going to move those aside now, so that way we can get a better look at this. Here's the big long rod where they connect. And then 4 of these sections are identical, and these 2 are only different because of some stickers, which we'll look at slightly closer. And then there's obviously the center and these 2 side sections, which are built up. So now let's go from left to right and look at all of them. So this is pretty well, the space is well used, and it's also efficiently built. This feels like a lot more than a $60 set, considering how big this feels. And then also, these other things as well as the side builds and the amount of minifigs. So I think this is a really great deal for $60. We'll get more into that later, though, near the end. Let's start here. Over here we have kind of this blender here. I don't remember anything that may be making a reference, so I think that's just kind of a random inclusion, because I don't remember anything about a blender in any of the Iron Man movies. Then also, of course, has another red coffee cup. Then here there is a little weapons rack here, which has a red gun. Don't think I've ever seen. And also that gun does come with an extra stud, that stud shooter there. And you can imagine those as being like equipments for his armor, or, For the Mark 50 nanotech suit, you know, those can be part of the tech growing out of it, or that can be like kind of a wrist-mounted laser type thing in one. And I guess if you want, you could also turn it around. You would have to take off the stud gun in this, though. You could turn it around and kind of imagine it as a water cooler, because they included that, and I don't know why they included that, because it's not really necessary for it, just the way it's built. But you could imagine that as a water cooler if you turn it around on here. And so as you can see, this, but that's just removable. And so if you want, you can also fit another suit in here. I'll talk more about that later, though. Then here is just an identical section to that. And the suits just fit in there pretty nicely. I do like the chrome here on the grates on all of them. I think that looks really nice. Then here's another identical section except for a sticker on the back, which we'll look at in a second. Then here's the center section, which has this big pole here. And then it also has a little stand for a jetpack, which is kind of another equipment which you could imagine as being part of the nanotech suit or just an equipment. I think it works best on the Mark 1, just because the color blends a little bit better. And that's only different because of the sticker. And then here is another one of those, where this one's actually one of the 4 identical ones. And this just has a little tool rack. It comes with a wrench. I wish they would have maybe included something to go there, like a hammer or something. But they didn't. They just left that empty, which you could also, put some of those weapons over here if you want. But like I said, I wish they would have maybe included something there. There is a fire extinguisher in other places in the set, though, which I guess you could put there if you really wanted to. We'll get to that fire extinguisher. And then here's a little workbench. And this has this little stand here with kind of a flick-fire missile base. And that's used to actually store an extra hairpiece for Iron Man, which I think is pretty useful. We'll look at that later, but if you want, you could also, pop a helmet off of one of the Iron Man suits and set it there to look like he's working on it. And then you can, make it look like he's working on it. And then, also, tops of all these are identical. They have just the 2x2 with 2 studs there. And then the back is blank. I wish they would have filled that in there. 1x2 with studs there. I'll explain why later. But I think they could have just put a tile there. That would have made it look much better. But then also, these can pop off. And I'll get to that later more why you want to take those off. And then this is just meant to pop off. It's meant to be, loosely connected. It's just a little satellite dish, which I think works and looks good enough. It can also swivel if you want. And so now let's look at those stickers, and then I'll explain why there's some weird stuff on the top, and also some more of the customizability. So there are 3 stickers on the back here, which are kind of hard to see. This one being the Mark 5. This one is the Mark 25 Stryker. I don't know why they decided to include Stryker, as he doesn't come in this set, and we haven't had any version of him so far. And here's a sticker for the House Party Protocol, and I believe that suit is meant to represent the Silver Centurion. That one's obviously the Mark 5, because it's the suitcase. And I think that may be a Red Snapper. I'm not sure what those other 3 suits are supposed to represent, if they're anything in particular. They could just be, meant to represent any random suit. And before we talk about a bit more of the customizability, something I like is the fact that they included a ladder here, so there's actually a way to get up. So now let's talk about some of the weird stuff on the top. So something that I really love about the set is how customizable it is. So we're just going to demonstrate with these 2 sections. We're just going to start with one section at first. So what you can do is you can pop off this, and then you can set that on there. And so then you can have multiple rows. In fact, I'm going to pop off 2, and then you can even, connect them and do this. That way you have multiple layers. And then something that I discovered is a good way to use these extra ones that you'll now just have laying around so that way you don't lose them. You can pop them off and then put them up there so that way it has a walkway all around. And we're just going to do that on the other side so you can get a bit of an idea on how this could look if you want it to be symmetrical. It does recommend this on the box, but it doesn't make it symmetrical. It just kind of has 3 in the center. And obviously you can't make this perfectly symmetrical as, well, it's pretty close to symmetrical, but you can't put 1 in the center as it doesn't include enough. So that just gives you an idea of what it kind of looks like. But the main use I see for the ability to stack these is buying multiple of these sets and stacking them. So you could, get 2 of the sets and then stack them and take the railings off the first set, put them on the top similar to what I did here, and then you can have a really large Hall of Armor, which is something I'm planning on eventually doing, and I think that'll look really cool. So overall, I think this main build here is really freaking cool, as well as, these that kind of connect there, and it definitely has a good value as well as being super useful. And also, this can fit a lot of suits. There's room for 6 suits, and this set only comes with 4, and then also you can kind of fit a 7th there, so as you can see, all of them are down here and fit perfectly in, but then this one is actually 1 brick up, so it kind of works to fit a suit. So if you really want to put more suits in, then you can put it there. So in total, there's room for 7 suits in here, as well as, I guess, an 8th on the assembling table, if you really want. And then you really can't put any there unless if you really want it to just be kind of half. You could just do that, but I don't think that looks very good personally. So yeah, at minimum you can fit 6, but you could fit all the way up to 9 if you take off the blender and just kind of half do it there. So now let's go look at some of the smaller builds. First up is this small dummy build, the robot dummy. And there is also a Avengers Endgame polybag that has dummy, but it's built completely different from this. It is a bit similar, but it is a different version. And I think that this is a good inclusion, even though there is a polybag, because not everyone might be able to get that polybag, because I know polybags sometimes can be hard to find. But I also think it's a good idea that they had that polybag as well for people who wouldn't be able to afford the set and want dummy. And so he's actually wearing the dunce cap from Iron Man 3. And then he has that fire extinguisher, which I was talking about earlier, which you could clip on the tool rack. And then there's just 2 fires for him to put out. So I think that's a pretty neat inclusion, having this really fun, unique character from Iron Man that we've never got. So I think that was a good inclusion. Let's move on to the other side build. So here is a brick-built version of the Igor suit, which I believe is the Mark 38. And this has been in LEGO games before, but as a big fig. And to be honest, I think doing it as a big fig would probably be better. This has been kind of memed within the LEGO community, and also there's a lot of people who really hate it and a lot of people who really like it, and then there's some like me who are just in between. I see the positives and the negatives of this. So let's start with just kind of an objective going over it, and then I'm going to talk about what I like about it and what I don't like. So first off, he's pretty posable. He has ball joints at the arms, which are a bit restricted, because, that's just kind of the way ball joints work sometimes, and also his bulky shoulders. And then he has ball joints at kind of the, you can imagine that as the wrist or elbow. Then each finger can be posed. This one swivels like this, the thumb does. And then there's kind of a inverted tile there to represent the blast on his hands. And then the legs are also posable as well with 2 ball joints. And the toes can swivel as well. So you can easily get him on 1 foot. Just like, not quite. I'm sure if I had more time I probably could. Almost. Yeah, I'm sure if I had more time I could probably get him to balance on 1 foot. And then he also has 4 stickers there on the arms and legs there for the kind of white caution pattern. And on the face there, that's a print. I really like that print. And then he also has the ingots there, which I think is a good part usage. And then Igor can also open up. He can hinge there. And then at the base. And that's actually hinged on a ball joint there. I don't know why they hinged on a ball joint on the back there. But they did, which I think is actually kind of annoying, because if it was just on, a normal hinge, then it would all hinge up straight. But a lot of the time I end up, knocking it slightly to the side and stuff, so that annoys me a bit. And then these also can fold open. And there's enough room to put 1 minifig in there. We're just going to up. So they can fit in there. And then it closes up around them. And there is a decent bit of gapping. But I like the idea of them being able to fit in it. So now let's start with, now that we've gone through looking at it, let's start with what I like. Like I just said, I like that they had the idea that, maybe they should make it so you can fit a physical minifig in it, which I think is pretty cool. I also like the posability of it, and I also think it's a good inclusion to have Igor. And now, also I like that print a lot. Now what's bad about it. It's really blocky and looks kind of funky. I also think it's a little big. As you can see, compared to a minifig, I think Igor should be about that tall, like big figure size, so I think this is a bit big. And also the main problem is kind of the shaping. It feels very blocky and chunky and weird at some points. So I think they could have probably made it better, made it smaller, made it look nicer, less blocky, if they had decided to not be able to include a minifig in it. Which, as much as I like the idea, I think that is probably kind of the root of why it's all clunky and weird. I also don't like the choice piece for the face. I think it's fine for there, but then why did they choose this? It, arcs out like he has a beak, which I think is weird. They should have just, used some cheese slopes or something there, or just, had a tile. I think either of those would have worked better, or maybe just, a 1x2 slope there, or, not a slope, I don't remember exactly what the piece is called, but one of these, I think a couple of these here would work, or the 2x2 version of that. So I think the choice for the facial geometry isn't really good, but I feel like there will be a lot of kids who enjoy this, and personally, I like the idea, and I like some of the concepts, but the execution wasn't that good. So we'll start with the three most boring minifigs. These two identical Outriders, and then the Iron Man Mark 50. The Outriders came in 3 sets in the Infinity War wave, and then they come in 4 out of the 5 sets of the Endgame wave. Guaranteed there are different variants in the Endgame sets, and this is kind of the basic one that came in the Infinity War sets. And so they are pretty common and a bit boring, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. I still think they're really good minifigs. And they also introduced this new bracket piece on the back, which allows them to have the 4 extra arms, which has been used for a bunch of things since then. And they just use these kind of short droid/skeleton arms on the back for their extra 4 arms. I really like the printing on the faces and on the front there. It's very intricate and detailed and looks nice. So, like I said, they are common, kind of boring, but that doesn't mean they're bad minifigs. There's also the printing on the back of the head, and then you can't see their back printing right now. They don't have any printing on the legs, though. Then here's the Mark 50, which came in 2 sets in the Infinity War wave. The 2 largest sets, though, so I think it's good to include them here, so that way people who couldn't get them now. And he has some pretty intricate printing there. I really like all the gold around the sides as well. And then, of course, he has the standard Iron Man helmet with the blue eyes. He also has toe printing. And the printing on the back is just kind of the same stuff carried around with a pretty similar quality of the printing. And, of course, with all Iron Man suits, the helmet can lift up. And then this head is the same as the Infinity War ones, where it has the HUD there. And then the helmet can also be popped off, and you can see that a bit better. I think that's really cool and a unique inclusion. And then also there's his face without the HUD, where he's just smiling. And that's what that looks like with the helmet on. So now I'm going to take some stuff off and change some stuff out so you can see, the back printing on the Outriders as well as something on Iron Man. I've put that hairpiece from earlier on him now, and I only bothered to take the arms off one Outrider because they have the same back printing, which is very similar, to the front printing in style and quality. So I think the Outriders here are good minifigs. They're just kind of boring because they come in so many sets and are so common. And if you buy all the sets, you'll have a massive army of them. So I think, plus these are the only bad guys in the set, so it's kind of important that they included some bad guy to have conflict. But I also would have preferred if maybe they included 2 more Iron Man suits to get some of the suits that we never got, because I think that'd be really cool. And that's one of the main reasons that I know a lot of people are buying this set, is to get the various suits. So I think it would have been nice if they maybe replaced them with, some of the more weird, obscure suits from Iron Man 3. Here are the 3 other suits beside the Mark 50, which Iron Man is in, that they include in the set here. And these are all new suits that we've never gotten a version of. We have the Mark 1 on the left, the Mark 5 in the center, and then the Mark 41 on the right. And I think the selection here is really good. First of all, because they each come from a different Iron Man movie, Iron Man 1, 2, and 3. And there was never a license for Iron Man 1 and 2 sets, or else we probably would have gotten these suits. And then Iron Man 3, of course, had all sorts of random suits. There were so many in that movie, so there was no way that they were going to get all of them made, so this is a good inclusion. I especially like the inclusion of this one because it's a different color scheme than most suits, you know, with red and gold, or red and gold with some silver. I think choosing a suit that's a much different color was a good inclusion. And then we're going to start looking at the Mark 1 here, which I think was a great inclusion, as, you know, it's kind of iconic, and I think a lot of people get nostalgic over it. They use this one helmet piece, which is used on so many minifigs, except I think it works really well for him here. He kind of has them silver printed over the actual faceplate there. You can see the line where the helmet stops, where, like, the non-printed part stops and it starts the print. And then it has so much detail, you know, little sand bits as well as the eye holes in the mouth bit there. And then the chest plate here especially has so much detail. You can see, like, you know, little lines and flakes going through, as well as when the light shines on it, you can see that there's some silver printing on the silver. There's even little letters there for pieces of the scrap metal, and then there's also a bunch of little kind of sand details. Even on the legs, you can see a bit of blue showing through of, like, the jeans that he's wearing under the suit. I really like the way that looks. It's really freaking cool and detailed. Moving around the back, there's kind of the yellow plate underneath, which actually says Stark Industries there, and then there's kind of that conglomerate of chains and pulleys and hoses and tubes that allow the suit to move. Now let's move on to the Mark 5 here from Iron Man 2. This is the one that comes out of the suitcase. I think they should have maybe included a suitcase with him as an accessory, but it's not necessary. I just think that would have been kind of funny. You know, just a red suitcase with maybe some silver printing on it. So that way you could have the suitcase and the suit that comes out of the suitcase. And I still really like him, but I think he's probably one of the most bland out of the three here, as he's closest to the generic Iron Man suits. I really like all the silver down the center there, especially kind of the four arms, grabbing that main metal plate in the center. And then I also believe this is the first time we've ever gotten a silver faceplate on an Iron Man suit. The back printing is, you know, similar stuff and similar quality. This one does have a bit of kind of, I think that's sand blue on the back there, lines going through, which I think looks really nice. And overall, I think he's a pretty cool suit inclusion. Then here's the Mark 41, also known as Bones. I really like the gold faceplate, which once again I think is a first for Iron Man, a gold faceplate. Oh, quick correction, we have gotten a silver Iron Man faceplate on War Machine, but not on an Iron Man minifig. So anyway, he also has the golden hands. And then he's very, very detailed. You can see all the gold lines running throughout, and then even under that there's a dark gray printed under it, little dark gray lines and stuff running through. And it's so detailed and has so much going on there that it's like kind of impossible to see on camera properly. But it looks really neat. Then also he kind of has the gold and stuff running down the legs and the toes, and there's still little gray lines under that as well. And then around to the back here, you can see the light kind of shining on it sometime to get those gray lines. You see all the little dots and details underneath the gold. I'm going to try to get some of that light shining on here so you can see it. You might be able to see that if you really squint close enough. There's all sorts of little lines running through there, and it's a really amazing detailed figure. So I think this is a good inclusion of 3 more suits. I just wish that maybe with the minifigs here they wouldn't have included the Outriders, or maybe cut one Outrider and switch them out to more suits. So that way we could, you know, have more and more suits, because I'm a sucker for Iron Man suits, and I just think it would have been a nice inclusion. So overall, I really, really like this set, and I think this is a great set for kids to play with, as well as for display, as well as kind of, you know, putting some of your other Iron Man suits in there, which we'll look at in a second. I'm going to show you how awesome it looks when it's filled up. I think the inclusion of these 4 suits is good. The Outriders is a meh inclusion. Obviously, I think they're good minifigs, but I wish that they would have given us something better, you know, replace them with 2 other suits. And then the dummy side build is pretty good. The Igor is meh, and I love how customizable it is and how you can buy multiple sets and stack them, which I am probably going to do sometime in the future, and will maybe make a video about if I want to. But before we exit this out, I'm going to fill up the whole Hall of Armor so you can see what it looks like with a bunch of suits. So I just threw in some suits from my collection, as well as I made sure to put the 4 that come in the set here, as well as some others from my collection. So I think this looks especially cool when you fill it up with all the suits. The only problem is then you just kind of have these things laying around loose, though there is a quick fix to that. You could just, you know, slap them up here if you want, or also you could move the suits and maybe try to fit them in back there. Never mind, they won't fit. Maybe the wrench one will fit. I think the wrench one might fit. Yeah, no, never mind. Yeah, the only problem if you fill them all up completely is what to do with these. You'll just kind of have these laying around. But I think it's definitely worth it for that epic look of all the suits in there. And then obviously, you know, if you stack another on top and fill that up, it'll look really, really epic. So overall, I think this set is great. And I highly recommend this set. It's one of my favorites.